Hey guys, this is IntroducingEmy and we're back with another Redline Tuesday. This one was sent to us by, let me get a little closer here, pick6.deviantart.com. Sorry, I'm trying to think how to pronounce that. Pick6, I think, maybe. P-I-K-S-X-X-X-X, a million X's. pick6.deviantart.com. So I know you're probably looking at this and going, well, wow, this is like a pretty good drawing already. You know, that's what I thought too. I almost skipped this one. So some of them I've gotten, they're actually really nice, and I kind of skip them and see if I can figure out something to critique on it, and I'll come back to it. But I was reading the email, and actually it's not the figure she's concerned about, it's the background. So, and I thought, wow, that's unique. You know, we really haven't done a background. So I quickly masked off this figure so that, as you can see, we're just going to be painting behind the figure. I kind of just fluffed the bottom of the dress there because it kind of disappears into the, what, are these violets, I think? I think they're violets. So that is what we're going to be doing here. We're going to be going down here and working on all this. I think the other thing I'm going to do, actually, is disappear the figure on my paint layer, and you know, I don't know how this is gonna go. I'm curious to see if it can do it. I'm going to actually content aware the fill option here and see what it does. Content aware in Photoshop CS6. Oh, it did a pretty good job. Okay, it did a pretty good job. So what it's done is it's gotten rid of the figure. The only reason I'm doing that is so that I'm going to have to do some, oh, I have a little tool turned on here, I don't need that. I'm going to do a little bit of painting and blurring and whatnot, and it could cause some problems. Let's actually, oops. Yeah, go like this, and we'll do, sorry. I'm going to be blurring some figures and stuff, and if you, because I've only got, you know, this one image to work with, which was provided by the original artist, if I blur anything, you'll see like parts of the figure blurring out into the background and things like that. So all I'm going to do is just kind of roughly fill in this void in the background here. Just so that we don't see it. Okay? So now the figure appears on top. There we go. So the first thing we're going to do, when I was looking at this, I thought, oh, I already know what I want to do here. I'm going to select this whole top, and I'm going to go to select, modify, feather, and let's put it on a feather radius of like 100. This is a pretty big drawing, so I think we can get away with it. And then we're going to go to filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and we are going to actually blur the hell out of the background there. Alright, because it's in the background and we don't need it to be really sharp. And then we're going to start painting. So normally I would pretty much do this all on one layer, but this is not my drawing, so I have to kind of fluff through it a little bit more. One thing I would recommend is coming in with a darker color here and kind of sharpening up this grass a little bit. Okay? And in a second here, I'll show you a real cool little trick you can do with grass and flowers and everything. Now, I like to work sort of just manually. I hit the control button to quickly select the paint dropper tool, and then I just select the nearest color, pick a nice brush, and you just go in, almost like you're doing fur a little bit. Now the reason I'm kind of sharpening this up is not necessarily to detract from the figure, but actually to add a more firm, or like a more distinct texture around her that's more uniform, and it actually would draw your eye to her. So we're just gonna put some cuteness in here. And I think just by sharpening it up, it's already really... I'm going to get some of this great yellow. I'm going to bring it down in here. Yeah, maybe not that bright. Just by sharpening this up, it actually is already starting to look pretty good. Just going to put some teeny tiny bits in here. Okay, so here I'm going to show you guys a little trick, and I thought this would be fun. I'm going to collapse that down. I'm going to show you it for the grass, but you could do this for the purple and anything, or any color. So we're going to select a lighter color, and then we're going to select a darker color, kind of like that bluey green. It can be any color, it doesn't have to, you know, be specific. And then you're going to go to your brush presets, and I have it set up so I can just access it right there. It looks like a little cup with a bunch of brushes sticking out, or you can go to Window and below brush presets. There you go. So anyway, go into brush presets. I'm going to turn dual brush off, transfer off, smoothing off, and I'm going to go to shape dynamics, control fade. Actually, no, I'm going to leave it on pen pressure because I think that looks fine. And then we're going to go to color dynamics, and if you don't have apply per tip checked, check it, or else this doesn't work, and I'm not sure why. Just it's the way it do. And then let's do... I'm sorry, I set your control to fade, and then I'm kind of doing some math in my head here. What did I... Yeah, I don't have that set to anything, so I kind of like to experiment. I'll just set it to 25 and see what it does. Yeah, that didn't work. Let's try... let me get a different brush. Yeah, there we go. Okay, let's set it now let's go like 100. Yeah. Okay. And I kind of want some longer blades of grass since this is like a field. So when you go to your brush tip shape, just you can mess with the spacing and you'll see it like grows it or shrinks it, but don't go too far or the brush actually starts to space and come apart. So then you've got like a pearl necklace kind of thing going on. So let's just keep it like that. So I've got the fade set for 100. So in color dynamics, let's set the control fade here to 50. So that'll be half of that. We'll see how that looks. And then one last thing, let's go to mode, which is going to be up at the top, and set it to lighter color. Okay. So this should, oops, I got my colors backwards, sorry. There we go. So this will do like a more, yeah, I want this to be a little shorter actually. Let's, there we go. A little shorter. Don't mind me, I always kind of mess around with these settings so I get somewhere I like. I'm used to working at a higher DPI, so this is actually a little strange for me. Now, I'm being kind of a jerk just painting over the grass, or excuse me, painting over the flowers here. I will go back and show you some different ways to do flowers, and also different ways to, let me put this back on my bar, different ways to do foreground stuff and kind of beauty everything up a little bit here. Now, one other thing when you do grass is, and I don't know why, but this like really changed. This really changed like my way of looking at grass. When every now and then, so go through, do your little like, you know, put all your little blades in. But every now and then go back and like draw one and if you can, break it. have it bend down. Because grass ain't perfect. And that can help it just look a little more realsy. Okay. So, now that we've done that, let's do some fleur-de-lis. Let's do some flowers. That is not how you pronounce flower in French, fleur-de-lis. You could technically do flowers using that same technique again. I don't know how much I would actually like that though. So let me, I'm just curious. Let me try that, but let's do dark purple. Let's just saturate it a little bit more. And then let's, yeah, I know, and then let's try a light purple again. Yeah, no, I'm not gonna like that. Forget it. Forget it. So, flowers I would do in a similar way as grasses. And I actually should have looked up references for these flowers. I would also probably use a brush, like a custom petal brush. Come in here and do this. So one thing I want to do is I actually want to harden up these petals because they're kind of blurred. But I want them to be a little more distinct. So here's the deal. I tend to paint with harder brushes. Not everybody likes to paint with harder brushes. For me, I like to be really clear about the idea I'm laying down. I don't like to be too foggy when I'm putting paint down, digital paint, not messy paint. This is not for everybody. I totally get that. So if you would prefer to use a softer brush, go for it. But right now what we're more worried about is lighting. We want to make sure everything looks nice. So if you're using a harder brush, that's fine. This is your world. This is my tutorial. So you can do it however you want when it's yours. So okay, so let's go in with a darker color here. I'm actually gonna save it. So I also tend to over vibrant. Let me turn off lighter color now. Sorry. I tend to like to over vibrant my colors or have them over saturated, I should say. I would rather have things looking too vibrant than too desaturated. Because 9 times out of 10, it's usually me trying to bring more color into a picture rather than get rid of it. And people might argue with me, but I think it's actually easier to get rid of color than it is to bring it in. There's always shortcuts, but that's just my opinion. Okay. I'm actually going to select these right here, and I'm just going to do a quick filter. Let's go to filter gallery, and huh. Oh, it's sharpened like really hard. Forget it. I'll just blur them a teeny tiny bit. A teeny tiny bit, not a bunch. Okay. And then let's add some more defined stalks. Never be scared to paint over your flowers. Again, we're not going for perfect, we're going for nature. You've actually given me a pretty good starting ground here, so I don't feel like I'm working from nothing. You know what I mean? Like I feel like I actually have like a fairly good jumping off point. Right now, I'm just trying to kind of blend the grass down a little bit so that you can't see the connection point so easily. Okay. So one thing I do is I always look to my navigator, because this is more, it's sort of like a really easy way to like quote unquote step back from your work. You know, they always tell you that, step back, you know, look at the whole picture, don't just focus on one little thing. So that's kind of what that simulates. So now, got some lovely foliage, and you can even, in the background, let me see if I can find just like a, so this is like a little scatter brush. It's just like little dots. You can find like a million of these on DeviantArt. Maybe in the background we could just to give it like a hint of other blossoms. And even maybe that like add detail in here a little bit. Okay. So let's move on to the sky. Now, here's another thing. I'm going to paint the clouds in, and then I'm going to actually put a gradient type, like a filter layer over top of everything. Because, to be honest, if I was working this from the beginning, I would have done this, you know, a particular way, my way. My way or the highway. But I don't really have that option because, again, this is not my drawing, so I have to sort of work it in a way that I normally wouldn't. So I'm actually gonna throw in just whatever colors I think will help define these clouds. So clouds work the way most things in nature do. They have shadows. So I'm just gonna fluff in some darkness. Then I'm going to take, not quite a solid brush, I don't know if you can see this, but sort of like a little stippled brush, and I'm actually going to go in and sort of like define this top edge. Also, sorry for all the banging, my dog has a bone. Like a dog with a bone. And then I'm going to sort of come through and define this shadowed edge. And for fun, let's take a little bit of this yellow and make like a different little puff coming out. Now, I am not like a cloud grand champion or anything. I get by on the clouds I paint, you know what I mean? Like, there's tons of pictures of different clouds out there, different tutorials. Everybody has sort of like their own way for doing clouds, so I'm sort of doing these dramatic, almost like mountainous clouds, but you can do them however you see fit. And I'm not totally sure where the sun is supposed to be. I actually got the impression that this was supposed to be kind of like a sunset, and that the sun was supposed to be like down here. That's kind of what the lighting is implying. The lightest parts of this are kind of coming from back here, so I'm actually going to go with that, and I'm going to put a lot of white right down in here. Let's put some puffs on, and I'm going to kind of smooth, oops, sorry about that. I'm gonna smooth out some of the shading over here. It's like really, it's like almost too distinct. Okay, mountains I'll worry about in a little bit here, but for now let's do our clouds. Let's focus on one thing at a time. So I'm gonna collapse that down. And then I'm actually going to put a gradient on top of all this. Now, I'm really like winging this, like probably more than I should. But let's do like a purple off in the distance, and then let's go to this orangish color, like a peach color, and then let's do one last yellow. Okay. And then we're going to set this to circular, and I might have to reverse this. Yes, I'm going to have to reverse it. Okay. I'm going to have to go on top of everything, and then we're going to go overlay, not overlay. Let's go. I might have to kind of fiddle with this a little bit. That's nice. I like that. It's not quite what I had in mind, though. That's nice, too. Oof, overlay is taking no prisoners, that's for sure. We'll just darken it. So there we go, we've kind of richened up the colors a little more. By the way, if you're interested what that looks like now, this is what that gradient looks like, because I adjusted the color, but I put it on overlay. It's kind of vibranted up the colors, you know, look at those purples. Woof. Girl, stop with them purples, so pretty. And then I'm going to take a puff of white for the sunset. I'm actually going to put some yellow in that. Okay, so again, you could actually change the lighting now on this character to make it a little more golden over here. I'll just do an overlay. Also, I never normally work in this many layers, but here we are. So you can see where I've only like very roughly masked out all this figure here. Sorry, it's so rough. Let me then I'm just gonna no. And then, now that you've got all this like gorgeous purple, I almost said a bad word there. It's like effing beautiful purple. You can do like a little bit of backlighting, though not like that. Not like that either. You know, you could really, like, you could just take this all over the place. You could do amazing things with this drawing, you know, it's fine. God, this is a pretty picture. This is the prettiest thing I've worked on in a long time. So yeah, you could really... Now I wasn't asked to do anything with the figure, but I wasn't asked to do anything with the figure, but I figure that the figure is part of the background in some way, so I need to sort of do something with her. But don't be scared of color. Color is our friend. Alright, so now that we've done that, the other thing I want to do is I kind of want to darken up the sky a little bit now that we've we've changed sort of like where lighting's from. And again, I'm going to use purple. I think the colors that we're primarily using here are like purple, yellow, and peach, and a little bit of green, just a little bit. And even the green is starting to turn sort of like a more murky, brown, dark peach sort of color. So, yeah, what I would like to do is sort of I'm not sure what would be a good way to do it without losing a lot of information. That's better. I'm still gonna, oops, not that hard though. Still gonna erase quite a bit of this. I just wanted like sort of a subtlety of pinkish purple up in the top. And you know, ooh, I'm gonna make it even more lovely. And you don't have to do this, I'm just getting all ridiculous. I'm trying to show all the many different things you could do with this. So I'm gonna select all. Let's put some stars up here, huh? Maybe. Oh, it would help if it wasn't on the eraser. I love stars. I have to have them in everything. Again, don't have to do this. Oop, I hear construction. And then I think one last thing I'm going to do is sort of just going to paint daub that a little bit. I'm trying to get it away from looking so, there we go. To get it looking away, or get it away from looking so like hardened, I guess. So real quick, let me do one last little thing here. I'm going to turn off everything that I've done pretty much so far, and I'm just going to go over the mountains really fast. These mountains aren't bad, you know, like, whatever. I'm not going to give you a guff about them. But try to not make them like perfectly pointed little peaks, and let's try to get some texture. Now there's like a million different texture brushes that come with Photoshop that you can mess around with the settings. There's ones you can download. There's just honestly a plethora of different brushes out there. So I know I'm using a textured brush. This isn't like anything special. It really isn't, trust me. It's just part of a set I found online that was free to use. Also, I've said this in some of my other videos. I always make sure that brushes are free for every type of use without credit, because honestly, I'm a busy person and I don't have time to credit everybody. So, and also a lot of these brushes end up getting used in my comics or whatever, and I don't want to have a whole page in my comic dedicated to thanking everybody for their brush use. So I always look for stuff that's free to use, and nobody would mind if I used it commercially or what have you. And there's tons of people out there that, you know, they really just don't mind. They just do it for the love of making brushes. I know that's what I'm like. When I make brushes, I don't care if I get credit. I don't care about what you use it for. Though I would be disheartened if you used it for, like, really bad things, like how to murder puppies. That would be sad. So, just bring in a little bit of lighting. And again, why would the flowers even stop? They would probably go up these mountains, don't you think? You could just... put some little puffs of purple up on these hills. If you're really frisky, you could do trees. We're not going to do trees, though. That kind of looked like one of those trees from Whoville. Or not Whoville, the Lorax. Excuse me. I guess that might be part of Whodom. I'm not sure. There we go. So we just made the mountains a little more mountainy and not so perfect. Not like perfect little pointed peaks. Again, this grayness could either be flowers, it could be rocks, you know, just something to make the mountains not look so, like, I keep saying the word perfect, but you know what I mean? Like, kind of unnatural, you know? And you could even, you know, you could just take some brush, and you could like add a fence, you know, way out in the distance. It would probably be darker though. You'd probably have to do something like that. Just make sure you kind of blur the brush or what have you, just so it doesn't, you know, it's following that age-old set of you know, things further away should be blurred, things in the foreground should not. So there you go. So that's a little more lets them a little more off in the distance. One other little thing, I'm just gonna put a little puff of this cream color just to show that it's more off in the distance, just like that, okay? And last but not least, I'd like to try one last thing. You do not have to do this. This is just me being a fluffer nutter. So a lot of times in comics, a quick way to add depth to something is to put something black in the foreground or a very dark color in the foreground. So let's just pretend these are so this is kind of like a sneaky way of adding like a little bit of foreground depth there. And I would actually, yeah, I wouldn't make it black. In comics, I tend to just, you know, black, that's the color that we all use. So I'll make it like a really dark purple. Kind of like a cranberry color. And then I would just filter, blur. Again, that's not something you have to do. It's just kind of a neat little way to frame out your picture, you know, because then now you have like a dark in the corner and then like a light up, not quite in the corner, but you know, you've got this sort of dark to light sort of thing going on. So that's another little way you could add something. That's what I meant to do. So, there you go. So this is just sort of like how I would do a background, you know. Again, I don't have the raw file, so I had to kind of like go over the character in a rough way and stuff. So I hope that's not held against me. So let's compare. So there's the original, and there's the new one. So there you go. So let's just quickly go over everything I was talking about. Sorry, this video is running just a teens long. So we've sort of redefined the clouds. We've added a more distinct light source, which helps define the field, the figure. We've sort of cleaned up the flowers a little bit and the grasses, just making sure that things in this sort of mid-ground here are sharp, like her. So like the grasses and the flowers in this general vicinity are all sharp and really clear, whereas the mountains in the background and any little doodads you put up front here are blurred so that only the middle ground is your focus. Clouds I tend to like to leave a little more defined because they're clouds, and people, you know, generally, whether they're softened or distinct, understand that they are in the background. So, oops, I keep hitting the wrong thing here. Sorry. We also made the mountains a little less defined, more painted. Kind of remind me of like the rocky ridges of, like, if you go out in Ireland, there's like these little hills with like rocks and stuff. It's kind of what this reminds me of a little bit. And yeah, I think it looks nice. So let's thank Pick6. Let me look at it real quick again. piksx.deviantart.com. I don't know why, but I want to go like go to like a million of them. So there we go. So that's the end of this one. Keep sending in your Redline Tuesdays. your drawings for Redline Tuesdays. Remember, I can go over anatomy, backgrounds, color to some degree. I don't consider myself like the best colorist ever or anything. And yeah, we'll go from there. Okay, cool. See you guys later. Bye.